Welcome back to this session. So let's get started. We'll start using the IPython notebook. To start the notebook, first we need to type Jupyter notebook. Now if that doesn't work for you for whatever reason, if you have an old version of IPython installed, you can just type IPython notebook, but I hope you have a reasonably up-to-date installation that you can type Jupyter notebook. It should start up. Okay. So once you do that, you should be able to create a new 2 or Python 2 or Python 3 notebook. So let's try this. When I do this, notice that it will open a browser. This browser will give me this Jupyter and it will show me actually the contents of this directory. If there was a subdirectory, it will also show me a subdirectory and I could navigate into that subdirectory. Now, in this case I have a sample IPython which I'm going to demonstrate a little later. But if you want to create a new file, you can go to this new menu here, click on it. You can either create a text file which will give you a simple text editor on your browser. Otherwise you can create notebooks here. So you can click on, for example, a Python 2 notebook. That will open a new Jupyter notebook for you. And this is how you create a new notebook. You can change the name of this file by saying test, for example. Change it to whatever you want. And now this is your IPython notebook. So let's get back. We started the notebook by saying Jupyter notebook. Note that on your terminal you will get a lot of text. Don't worry about this. This is just some information that it's telling you about your about the Jupyter server that's running and being displayed on your browser. And then we went to the new menu and created a new notebook. That's how you create a new IPython notebook. So let me show you a demo by looking at an already provided IPython notebook file that I have already made. We'll look at that just to highlight the features that you have with IPython. So let me go back here. I'll close this. We have this sample.ipynb. I'm going to click on this, and if you have the circulate directory, this file is included. So you should be able to also click on it and open this. Now what we have here is some text which looks it's rendered nicely because it's rendered into some nice HTML. But if I want to edit it, I can double click this and I can edit this. So essentially it's text saying a sample notebook. Notebook can contain, so it's actually text written in what's called the markdown format. To evaluate this cell, I just press shift enter. Now that block of text is rendered. So let us look at what the notebook can contain. Notebooks can contain live code, they can contain markdown text. Markdown allows for images, links, tables and raw HTML. So all of these kind of things you can embed in this document. You can create equation using LaTeX markup. So if you click on this, this is a link, it should take you to a wiki page which will tell you about LaTeX syntax, so you can learn more about it. You can embed visualizations that I had shown you in a screenshot. You can also create some interactive widgets which I will quickly demonstrate over here. So before we begin, I would like you to start familiarizing yourself with the interface. So notice that there is a menu here, there are toolbar icons here, alright. There is a logout button here, there is this title that I can click on to change the title of this. I can rename the notebook, so I won't do it, so I will cancel. Now first thing I want you to do is, I want you to go to this help menu that you see here, click on the help menu, you see that there is a user interface tour. So let's click on this, you will see that it actually gives you a welcome tour. Welcome to the notebook tour. You can use the left and right arrow keys to go backwards and forwards. So I give you a few minutes, please press the left right arrows or push the appropriate buttons and it will actually walk you through a basic tutorial of how to use this notebook. So I urge you to go do this in a couple of minutes. Okay, so I hope you have all taken the notebook tour. You needn't have seen me do it. I want you to actually do it yourself. So take a minute to actually go through the interface tour and explore. Once you have explored this, I want to explain to you a few things. The first thing you have to understand about the IPython notebook interface is that the UI is modal, which means you have two modes to interact with the notebook. One is called the command mode, as you already saw in your interface tour, and the other is called the edit mode. So when you are in edit mode, you can actually edit the content of a cell. So the IPython notebook consists of cells, several cells. Each cell can be of a different type, either markdown or code, so on and so forth. And you have what's called a command mode, in which you can actually instruct the notebook to either add a new cell, remove a new cell, cut a cell, copy a cell, so on and so forth. Or in edit mode, you can actually type your code or type your text. So in this case, so what you need to do is you can create cells and you write the text in cells, and the cells can be of two different types. They can be either of markdown or of code. There are actually more types, but most often you will be finding yourself in either of these two. There is markdown and there is code. It's very important that you learn the basic keyboard shortcuts. So you could go over the keyboard shortcuts, again go to help and select keyboard shortcuts, you will see all the keyboard shortcuts. But most important among these are, the first is shift return. So if I click on this to edit it, notice this is actually just plain text, so I can edit it, change it, and I hit shift return, it evaluates this cell. Okay, so here is a code cell, again that's just a simple markdown cell. This is actually a code cell. Now if I evaluate this, it will print hello world. So let me change this text, I will go edit it, let us make it capital H. Oops, I made a mistake. Notice that even if I made a mistake, nothing happens. I can go back, edit it, shift enter, and now it says hello world. Now when you are typing code, you will find that, for example, when we do this, I hit shift enter, it actually evaluates and prints all of this. If I want, say for example, help on range, if I want to say type range, if I do RA tab, it will give me tab completion. If I do shift tab, it will give me documentation. So shift tab is extremely useful. You can also use the question mark syntax, so I can do range question mark will also continue to work, just as you have done in the console. But it's usually a lot more convenient to just do shift tab, because that's usually what you want. You just want a quick tooltip to tell you what the help is. Now when you are not in edit mode, if you press escape, you can come to the command mode. In command mode, you can press A. For example, if this is the current cell, I go to escape, I hit A, it adds a cell above this. If I press B, it will add a cell before this. DD will delete this. Similarly, DD, no, escape, DD will delete that. If you want to treat a cell as a markdown, so for example, we have this cell, I want to treat this cell as code, I press Y, it will become a code cell. If I want to treat it as markdown, I press M, it will become a markdown cell, shift enter, it is evaluated. So it is actually a fairly easy interface, you just need to get more used to it. We have given you the sample IPython notebook to play with, so that you get familiarized with it. Explore, feel free to experiment, there is no problem, you are not going to lose anything by playing with this data. Once again, A to add a cell above the current cell, B to add a cell below the current cell, M to treat the cell as markdown, Y to treat a cell as code. So as you can see, you can keep typing your code in cells and explore the code and the output. Markdown is a very useful format to learn. So here is a link to markdown syntax. If you middle click this, it will take you to a new tab which has syntax about the markdown. So let us look at a simple image, for example. This is how you would add image to this. This is how you would add some code to it. So let us look at how that is rendered, and notice that we have the image rendered. We also have some sample code rendered in a monospaced font here. You can also create equations, and this is kind of similar to what we saw for our matplotlib plots. You can embed it in dollar signs and actually write LaTeX code inside this, and you will get mathematical formulae. So you can actually typeset mathematical formulae relatively easily. And there is a link here, if you click on this, you can learn a lot more about how to typeset mathematical formulae with LaTeX. It is just a Wikipedia article, Wikibooks article, so you can easily learn about the general syntax that you can use. Now we want to show you how you can embed visualizations. So remember I told you that we can do pylab, %pylab. Turns out that pylab also has an option to tell you how to embed or how to show these plots that keep popping up. In the notebook case, you always want to have the plots show embedded in your document so that the document contains the images. So to do that, you just say %pylab inline. What that does is it populates the interactive namespace from matplotlib and numpy, and if you type something like this, notice that the plot shows up right here. The plot is immediately embedded here. And here's another plot, and that's embedded here. Now as I explained earlier in the slides, there's a cleaner way to use matplotlib, which is to say %matplotlib inline, in which case the difficulty is you have to import explicitly whatever you want to do. But here's a simple example showing you how you can do the same thing. There's another plot that's embedded with that. Now in addition to this embedding equations, text, pictures and code, you can also do create interactive widget. For example, if you're an instructor and you want to give material to a student and you want them to play around and explore something, you can create these embedded widgets. So to do that, you first need to import from IPyWidgets, you need to import this thing called interact. So if you do that and you run this, so now we have created a little function here called damp alpha. This is very similar to our little picture that we plotted in the exercises session that we had. Essentially it shows you a damped exponential a decaying wave. So this function is just making a plot of that. Once we have that function, if we simply call interact, pass it that function name here. So I'll make it a little bigger for you to see. All I'm saying is interact damp, and I say alpha is 0.5, giving it a default value. Notice what happens. I get a plot and I get a slider widget here. So I can actually drag this and it will change the value of alpha. What is alpha? Alpha is simply this parameter that's passed here. So this makes it extremely easy to create very useful dialogues for users to play with. So for example, here's a slightly more complicated example. It takes two parameters, alpha and beta. Beta is some phase shift. So now let's play with alpha. We'll reduce alpha to say 0.1. And now we'll increase beta and see what happens to the plot. Right? So as you can see, you can easily explore this. To learn more about widgets, please read the documentation about the IPyWidgets document. So there's a link here, again clicking on this, middle click on this or right click. This is just a HTML page, so you should be comfortable navigating this. And this will give you all the documentation about IPython widgets. Okay, how to install, how to use, what are the advanced options. And in this all we wanted to do was show you a demonstration of what you can do with IPython notebooks. Remember that when you exit a notebook, you have to go to File, Close and Halt, and then your notebook is closed. So with this we complete our demonstration of the Jupyter notebooks. Remember we started the IPython notebook from here and that web application is still running. So when you want to end this, you can just press Ctrl C on your terminal and then say yes, it closes down your notebook and you get back your terminal. Thank you very much.